All right, so thank you for coming out to talk about the language of love. Now, this is cool because I love doing these etymologies, because etymology gives you a sense of where a word has been. My favorite literary critic, and I'm sure you have your own favorite literary critic, mine is Mikhail Bakhtin, a Russian dude. What? Yeah, all right, whatever. But yeah, that's yours, right? Yeah, but did Northrop Frye smoke his own manuscript? I rest my case. Okay. Mikhail Bakhtin did. And he says that words taste of the context in which they've been used. Right? I love that so much. And so when you do etymology, you're really doing a kind of archaeology of the word's life. But tonight, love apparently has always been just love. Or not just love, I should say. Lufu, Old English, feeling of love, romantic sexual attraction, affection, friendliness, the love of God, love as an abstraction or personification. All right, that's kind of appropriate, I think. Love has always been love, or Lufu. I Lufu you. Now, if you begin to do a search on the language of love, which is our topic for tonight, you will get pages of this. So I feel like I should mention them. This is Dr. Gary Chapman, a psychologist who has determined the 5 love languages. There are 5, and I don't mean to denigrate this because I think all seekers need different things on the path. But for me, I've never been one to, like, as soon as you limit it to 5, I got red flags going off for me, so I don't like this approach, but lots of people do. Words, the 5 love languages, words of affirmation. All right, sure. Acts of service, doing things for your lover. Receiving gifts, sure. Quality time and physical touch. Okay, that makes sense to me. Anybody want to argue with any of that? Yeah. Well, if you like that, there is their app. Love Nudge. I'm not making this up. It's like a fitness app for relationships. I'm not making this up. Love Nudge. All right. Language of the love world. So we've talked frequently about Robert Solomon's notion in his book, Love, Emotion, Myth, and Metaphor, of lovers creating a love world. And he means that in a deep sense, and in that you two are the only ones who live in this world. Meaning, of course, that you have your own language. And of course, it's often baby talk. All right? And I'm not making this up. There have been studies. So, sweet cheeks, honey bun, cutie patootie, etc. And then this article I read on JSTOR says pumpkiny wumpkiny is objectively the worst baby talk in the world. Pumpkiny, I think we can do worse than that, can't we? Yeah, okay. That's called rhyming reduplication, by the way. Cutie patootie, rhyming reduplication. Feel free to use that. But it does serve a function. Stop and think about this. Stop and think about the language that you and your lover share. And if it's the same language, think about the intonation and inflections and ironic layers to the language you use with your lover, right? Because it's secret. It's you and her or him. So think about this. And what better way to create a world together than to create the language of this world together? And you can go right from there to Genesis and in basically any other creation myth. And God said let there be light. And guess what? There was light. I say, I love you, cutie patootie, and I do. And you say it back, and it's a speech act. And that's why you don't say it too soon, right? Because if you say it too soon, that can be bad. Anybody ever done that? Don't raise your hands. I have. I've done that. Okay, thank you, Matt. Yes. You can wreck it if you say it too soon because it's a speech act. It's creating the thing you're talking about. It also reduces uncertainty. And I had never thought about this till I read this article. It does do that because love is amazing, and at the beginning it's especially amazing, but it's also walking a tight wire, right? Because there's so much uncertainty embedded in those first few, weeks, months, years? Who said years? Okay, sure. Okay, Catherine. Or never. Okay, we can get to that. It is highly charged, and that's because it's awesome and because it's terrifying, right? What do you need? You need that wire. You need something to connect you, something to travel on. And language, that is language. And in fact, it's your shared language, right? So it may be a film, and you quote the lines to each other. Sure, it's a film. Everybody's seen it. But only you two are quoting the lines in this time, in this place, in this way. And so it's yours. And so it becomes part of your love world. It's that old sense of saying something and somebody else saying yes, right? And I think of Molly Bloom at the end of Ulysses, who says yes. Yes, 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 right? It's that moment. It's that connection, right? That's language. Language does that. It is also intensely private, of course, which is why, I hope Jeff Bezos isn't here tonight, which is why if your language gets out, it's pretty bad, right? If that private lover's language is made available to the public, Anthony Weiner, wherever you are, Jeff Bezos, you'll be fine, I'm sure, but right? It's very difficult. There's nothing quite so embarrassing as your lover's language being no longer private. Some of it because it's baby talk, it doesn't matter. It's invariably banal to outsiders, as it should be, because it's a private, charged language just for you two. And so when other people look at it, they don't have the depth, they don't have the emotion, they don't have the life, the blood that's in those words for you two. So, by the way, I forgot to tell you this. 75% of one study of love's language revealed, and these answers were anonymous, that they used baby talk in adult relationships, 75%. So I see you laughing at the baby talk, but 75% of you are doing it. Just saying. So, let me read this from the JSTOR article. It just goes to show that the language of couplehood is not blandly transactional, right? It is not blandly transactional, though we can reduce it to that, especially when we're pissed. You said this. I said that. Okay, if you're at that point, then this is not love language. This is some other kind of language. It's not blandly transactional, ordinary, or just about exchanging information. It's playful. And this linguistic play definitely has a serious purpose. Two people, even thrown together into some dating situation, may have plenty to talk about if they have a lot in common, but may never surpass the level of acquaintanceship, to reach intimacy, unless the way they use language takes a sudden turn for the creative, the funny, the silly, and as some might view it, the worse. So, right, have you ever stopped and thought about this? The language, the way you use language uniquely with your lover, right? I know I do it every day. And if Alexa, she's definitely recording all this, so if she plays all this back, it's going to sound idiotic. But it's incredibly meaningful for me and my lover. So love is born in language, and some might say love is the language. Love is the language. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean actually a deep philosophical point, that language is the medium of our reality. That sure, there's stuff out there, but you can't talk about it without words. And this is why I love my physicist friends who have, including Caledonia here in front, who have these amazing things to say that are beyond words, but they have to use words. And so they end up with these awkward metaphors like Big Bang and other things. They work, don't get me wrong, and they're right, but you can't escape language. You still are working in language. And if you want to know why I think this, just watch a relationship dissolve and watch the language dissolve with it, right? That's where you start to tell, that's where you can tell where things are going wrong, is the way the lover speaks to you or doesn't speak to you, right? Now, I love this story, and I'm about to go into one of the studies of love, of the language of love, but I wanted to share the story because I love Milan Kundera, Unbearable Lightness of Being, and Immortality. And I just love this story. He's a Nobel laureate novelist, and he misunderstood the language of love. So let me just share this with you. This is at the beginning of the article. So he's living in Prague, and he gets a letter from a French publisher, a woman at a French publisher's office. And it says this in French. I'm going to read it in English. Please accept, dear sir, the assurance of my distinguished feelings. And here now is Kundera. When I first received such a letter, signed by a secretary from the publisher Gallimard, I was still living in Prague. I jumped for joy. In Paris, a woman loves me. She managed to insert a declaration of love into the last lines of an official letter. Not only does she harbor feelings for me, but she states explicitly that these feelings are distinguished. Never before had any Czech woman told me anything like this. Much later, once I was settled in Paris, and he actually considers himself a French writer now, I was told that the whole semantic range of politeness formulas are used in French correspondence. They allowed the French to choose with a precision of a pharmacist. That's an interesting right? Precision. Which feeling they wish to express without actually experiencing it. Oh, I love the French. They're my people. In this vast assortment, Kundera says, distinguished feelings represents the lowest degree of administrative politeness, close to contempt. And he says, love is one of a series of emotions that all humans share, but it may resist exact linguistic translation because of the uniqueness of the specific verbal and nonverbal manifestations and expressions across languages and cultures. And indeed, this was before the internet. So he would have fared very poorly on Tinder, I'm afraid. Or maybe it would have been awesome, I don't know. All right, so this is an article from the Journal of Intercultural Relations. about a study of the phrase, I love you. And it begins again with a great story that I want to share with you about Finnish love. Okay? So it's a 60 minutes piece. Long ago, Morley Safer. And he's the journalist here. And he says at the beginning of the piece that Finns, in their natural state, are brooding, private, grimly in touch with no one but themselves, the shyest people on earth, depressed and proud of it, the Finns. And then in one segment of the program, the locution, I love you, and its expression in Finnish culture is discussed by Ms. Schultz, a female American journalist living in Finland, Jan Nytus, a Finnish male literary critic, and Arja Koreseva, a Finnish female tango singer. Safer says this, do people tell each other that they love each other in Finland? Schultz, no, oh God, no, not even lovers. Nytus, well, I guess you could say it once in a lifetime. Say you've been married for 20 years and your spouse is on her deathbed. You could comfort her with saying, I love you. Safer laughs, and Nytus says it's not funny. Okay. Koreseva says, it's easier for me to say to my boyfriend that I love you in English. We've heard it on TV and movies. It's easier for me to say I love you than Minä rakastan sinua. It doesn't even sound nice in Finnish. Safer says, you look slightly embarrassed when you say it in Finnish. Yeah, we don't use I love you as much as you Americans do. You love almost everybody. When a Finnish man says I love you, he really means it. And in fact, this is the result of the study. So this is Journal of Intercultural Relations. I Love You, a cross-cultural study by Richard Wilkins et al. And just look at the chart here. You can see that the question is, how often is the declaration, I love you, made in these various relationships? And if you can't see it, let me help you out. Spouses, occasionally. The highest category being frequently, so spouses. Romantic lovers, frequently, sure. Parents to their children, frequently. You like that, Brooke?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Children and their parents, only occasionally. Or rarely, yes. Grandparents and their grandchildren, frequently. Friends, occasionally. Neighbors, never. Work and professional colleagues, never. Cousins, rarely. Shouldn't that be never? Okay. All right. What do we make of this? Well, the sample size is pretty small, so we don't want to make too much of it, 77 people, but here's what they found out. A Polish female talking about the phrase I love you says this, I know that if I would tell my parents straightforward that I love them, it would make them very uncomfortable. Same thing with my sister. We Polish people know we love each other, but we don't say it straight to somebody's face if it's not our husband or wife. A Greek male from Cyprus, the declaration has to be made, the declaration I love you, has to be made to the woman you will live with. Oh. Pete, Syrian, I love you is more serious and a committing term in other cultures. Middle Eastern girls I know who hear that from a guy automatically think marriage. Therefore, men of American culture should be very careful when they visit here. Let's see, a Chinese female. I love this story. Luca, you're going to like this story. Every time I go back home, my father always goes to the kitchen and asks me what I want to eat. He doesn't say anything. He just makes me food quietly. It's very touching every time when I see my father do it. Love doesn't have to be expressed verbally. I completely agree with it. I love my father. Let's see, a Jamaican female. I dated someone American who thought I was cold because I didn't say the word. I just can't use the phrase or the word that freely. Love is a very strong word, and I want to make sure that I mean it and not say it because it's expected of me. Done that. Korean female. I don't know why, but in my culture, to tell a person I love you is so hard to come out of our mouths. We feel in our heart, but to say it is a very hard thing to do. A Ukrainian male. Our people believe that the gravity of expressing love is way too great to be diminished by spontaneous moments of saying, I love you. Diminished. Let's see. Sam, an ethnic Indian male. In my culture, it's normal to wait a long time before telling someone that you love them. It's also not done frequently because it will lose its meaning. Hungarian female. Oh God, I think I dated her. It shows the weakness of the person who couldn't control himself and had to burst out. Shit, brutal. Now, this is interesting. This is a Cuban female. In the Cuban culture, people tend to speak very loud and are not afraid to express their feelings. My family members tell you up front that they love you. They're not emotionally restrained at all. Carlos, a Colombian male, agrees it's something that Latin people don't really hold back on verbally. The word is sometimes thrown around like a love-struck teenager. What about gendered differences in saying I love you? A Ukrainian female says, I love this story, just a few months ago, at the first time in my life, I declared my love to the person I love. It happened in the train station. Yes, it should always happen in the train station if it can, where I walked my boyfriend to. He told me first, I love you, and started leaving for the stairs. That was an amazing experience, and I was waiting for that moment a long time. However, I was waiting to hear it first from him, afraid that I won't hear it back if I tell him first. He felt the same, but he got the strength to make that decision. Jamaican female. People in my culture find it hard to say those words. They would rather show you, especially the men. Maurice, Jewish guy. Men don't really say I love you in my culture. We use nonverbal declarations. The men in my family and possibly culture are notoriously lazy and thoughtless. So when we actually do something not lazy and thoughtful, it's our way of saying I love you. Well played, Maurice. Romanian. It's quite embarrassing for me to see a man all emotionally exposed. I shut them down. Oh. Puerto Rican female. My husband does not like to say I love you, so nonverbals are important for me to watch out for. All right. What about the nonverbals? Jamaican female. Love transcends the physical. It's about the inner being of the person. When you love from within, it shows. Bad habits become tolerable and good habits are appreciated. We do not believe in saying I love you every waking hour of the day. We feel that when a person says I love you too often, they don't really mean it. Or it's a cheating heart that needs reassurance. Showing love by action speaks volumes in my culture. My mother always says, don't say it, show it. Syrian male. Making sacrifices or doing anything extra to make sure the person you love is happy. Missing a very important baseball game to go to your girlfriend's grandfather's birthday party. This just happened to me, he says. Putting someone else's needs before yours. Okay. All right. Chinese female. I love my mother. So I listened to my mom obediently one day when she taught me a lesson how to wash dishes. It's a simple thing. However, it's my way to show love. Puerto Rican female, my husband feels that love should be shown, not constantly said. It's caused a lot of problems between us. I felt that he should want to tell me all the time. I could not see his side or even understand it. I actually broke up with him our first year together because I did not feel that I was getting the emotional support that I needed from him, or that he was in the same emotional state that I was, right? That's that affirmation, because he could not say that he loved me. It took 3 years for me to stop fighting about it, and I love the ending of this story. Once I realized that he felt that showing meant more than saying, our first Christmas, he gave me a chain on a heart, our second, a car, a third, a coat. They equal his heart, making my life easier, making sure I was kept warm. We were engaged a month later. Caucasian female. Yes, there was a tension when a boyfriend would say that he loved me but never showed me. His time was spent with his friends, or plans were made without me. I felt as though the love declaration was made, but only to appease me for the moment. What do we conclude? What do they conclude? Well, that men express love verbally first, at first. Men are much quicker to say, I love you at the beginning. Less so after the relationship's been established, just the reverse for women. Women express love verbally more in established relationships. Married couples express love less verbally than other cultures. I guess I can see that. In all but Latino cultures, verbal expressions of love are fewer than in American cultures, and there's a lot of code switching going on, obviously, when you're in love. That's that private language. The study concludes, whatever the ultimate reason, American patterns seem to communicate amicability and are often misunderstood by outsiders as a sign of having gained access to the private realm. When it becomes clear that this is not yet so, judgments of Americans as shallow and superficial are not uncommon. I grew up in the South, and we are experts at this, making you feel welcome and at home, and don't trust that, because we doesn't necessarily mean that. Do you know that, Catherine? Anybody ever tell you, bless your heart? So here's another study that I thought was interesting. Do we still have some e-cards? Those were awesome. Oh, do you want it back, Maddie? Yeah. So this is interesting. This is called an exploratory study on the use of I love you in the American context. This is actually an ESL study, English as a Second Language. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought there were some interesting moments. Participants were 120 undergraduate students from a large public university in South Texas near the border. They were recruited from 5 different classes. So I know this is hard to see. To whom do you say I love you? Parents, 93%. Interesting. Siblings, 67%. Grandparents, 66%. All right, that's okay. God, 58%. Interesting. Spouse, 33%. That goes with the other study, right? Electronic devices, 24%. Almost as much as spouses. Computer, 22%. Shoes, Brooke Macbeth, shoes, 18%. Coworkers, 14%. Purse, 13%. Money or gold, 12%. Your TV, okay, 12%. Celebrities, 10%. Students, 5%, that should be 0, I think. Teachers, 4%. Service providers. Service providers, 2%. The cable guy. I love you, man. Why do you say I love you? This is an interesting question, right? To show love, 99%. Okay, that's kind of a tautology. We call that a tautology in philosophy. To show happiness. Yeah, I get that. Show appreciation. Okay, show support, 62%. Show admiration, 55%. Show respect, 50%. Show a wish, 13%. Show a wish. Show need, 32%. That can't be healthy. How do you say I love you? Well, the words I love you, 78%. Written, that is texting, 77%. Oral, face-to-face, 66%. Love you is 61%. Privately is 60%. The participants could choose more than one of these. Say it with eye contact or touch publicly. Love ya, 42%. I love you with stress on the final word, 25%. I love you with stress on I, 25%. Same. Let's see. I buttock you, 17%. That's a really bad heart. I love you to the bones, to death, to the end of time, to the last breath, 16%. And I don't understand 143. What is that?
It's the letters and the words. I love you.
Well, that's lame. Okay, 4%. How frequently? At least once, 35. Each day. Over 5 times, 27. At least 4 times, 5. What does it mean when I say I love you? I really care about you, 77%. I have affection for you in my heart, 74%. I adore you, okay. I'm here for you, 65%. I'm proud of you, 62%. I miss you. I feel like that should be higher than 60%. I appreciate you, 59%. I really like you, 49%. Thanks for helping me out. Thanks for helping me move, man. I love you. Wishing you joy and happiness, 46%. I will never forget you, 46%. My favorite, bye. 45%. I love you means bye. I apologize for what I have done. Yeah. 43%. You're great. 35%. I need something or I need your help. 20%. All right. So this is interesting. And we love our social science friends who help us understand these things, even though their sample size is always too small. But still, fun stuff. But you know, the language of love. We've got to do some literature, right? Charlotte Bronte. Jane Eyre. Because he said, I sometimes have a queer feeling with regard to you, especially when you're near me, as now. It is as if I had a string somewhere under my left ribs, tightly and inextricably knotted to a similar string situated in the corresponding quarter of your little frame. That's hot talk right there. And if that boisterous channel, and 200 miles or so of land, some broad between us, I'm afraid that cord of communion will be snapped. And then I've a nervous notion I should take to bleeding inwardly. As for you, you'd forget me. Awesome. Jane Eyre. The inimitable Dorothy Parker. who is wrongly attributed to saying that Los Angeles is 72 villages in search of a city. A little poem. If you don't know Dorothy Parker, your life is not complete. Unfortunate coincidence. By the time you swear you're his, shivering and sighing, and he vows his passion is infinite and undying. Lady, make note of this. One of you is lying. Do you know that? You made a what? A charm bracelet of this poem. Were you reciting the poem with me?
Yes.
You have this memorized?
I love it.
Okay. One of, my greatest heroes of love, Anna Karenina. Wow, what an amazing character. Just so, Betsy agreed. One must make mistakes and correct them. What do you think about it? She turned to Anna, who, with a faintly perceptible, resolute smile on her lips, was listening in silence to the conversation. I think, said Anna, playing with the glove she had taken off, right? Perfect. Playing with the glove she had taken off. I think of so many men, so many minds, certainly so many hearts, so many kinds of love. Does not end well for our friend Anna, but maybe it does, actually. Rainer Maria Rilke, brilliant poet. This is a pretty famous line of his, passage of his. To love is good too, love being difficult. For one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks. The ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation. Love is a high inducement to the individual to ripen, to become something in himself, to become world for himself and another's sake. It is a great exacting claim upon him, something that chooses him out and calls him to vast things, indeed. Now, in the description for our series, we quote this poem, so I wanted to come back to it, because if you want the language of love, you must go to Pablo Neruda. You must go. Do you like that, Sharon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He is the poet of love. So I'm going to give you actually a couple of Pablo Neruda poems. This one, which you may know, and another one which is a little darker, because I don't want you to think he was too sentimental. By the way, if you know the film Il Postino, it's a brilliant film. You know it, Christo? About Pablo Neruda. I don't love you as if you were a rose of salt, topaz, or an arrow of carnations that propagate fire. I love you as one loves certain obscure things, secretly, between the shadow and the soul. Almost called the series Between the Shadow and the Soul, but I thought Madness and Reason was a better description. I love you as the plant that doesn't bloom, but carries the light of those flowers, hidden within itself, and thanks to your love, the tight aroma that arose from the earth lives dimly in my body. I love you without knowing how, or when, or from where. I love you directly without problems or pride. I love you like this because I don't know any other way to love, except in this form in which I am not, nor are you, so close that your hand upon my chest is mine, so close that your eyes close with my dreams. That's the language of love. And we talked about the love world, and if you review the stories of love, and if you look at our series, Mythic Couples and Their Modern Meanings, you'll see that love is not usually sanctioned by society. Society, that is, the people in power, do not like love because they cannot control it. And so you go from Pyramus and Thisbe to Romeo and Juliet to Layla and Majnun, and all these great lovers, they love against something. They love against the world. And if you've ever experienced that, it's a very heady thing. It's a dangerous thing. And so Pablo Neruda, and because love battles. And because love battles not just in its own burning fields, right, but also in the mouths of men and women. I will finish this fight by taking the trail from those who had come between my chest and your fragrance to plant their confused plants. They will say about me nothing worse, my love, than what I have told you myself. Before I knew you, I lived in the prairies. I never waited for love to come. I ambushed the rose and fell upon her with fierceness. What more can they say? I am neither good nor bad, but a man. They will bring up the danger of my life, which you know, and with which you have mingled your passion. For it is good, this danger. It is the danger of love, of perfect love, for all life and all lives. And if this love brings us death or prison, which was a very real thing for Neruda, by the way, a very real possibility. And if this love brings us death or prison, I'm sure your big eyes will close as they close when I kiss them with pride. And double pride, my love, yours and mine together. They will come to speak before my ears, to tear down the tower of the sweet, hard love that joins us. They will say, the one you love is not the woman for you. Why do you love her? Surely you could find another, more beautiful, more serious, more deep, more other. Do you understand me? Look how slender this one is. Look what a face that one has. Look how she dresses, and so on and so on. And so in these lines, I say to you, I love you like this, love. Like this, I love you. As you wear what you wear, as your hair floats, as your mouth smiles, light as spring water running over pure stones. Like this, love, I love you. I don't ask bread to teach me anything except how to care for each day. I know nothing about light, where it comes from, where it goes. I only ask the light to be light. I do not ask the night for explanations. I await it, and it swallows me. And it's the same with you too, you who are bread and night and shadows. You came into my life with just what you had, things made of the light and bread and shadows for which I waited. And I need you that way. I love you that way. And to those who will hear this tomorrow, they can read it here, what I will not say, but let them keep their distance today, for it is still early for such arguments. Tomorrow we will give them only a leaf from the tree of our love, a leaf dropped on the earth, as though it had been made by our lips, as though it were a kiss that had fallen from unfathomable heights to show the fire and the tenderness of a love that is true. Whew, okay, hang on a second. Pablo Neruda. We need a little palate cleanser after that. So let's do just some love in brief. Anais Nin, great love affair with Henry Miller. What is love but acceptance of the other, whatever he is? I like that very much. Love is about acceptance of the other, and there are many others. Do you know Ambrose Bierce, California writer? I mean, he wasn't born in California, but he ended up in California. Authored The Devil's Dictionary, a parodic dictionary, satiric dictionary. Love, noun, a temporary insanity curable by marriage. Iris Murdoch, the great British novelist. Love is the very difficult understanding that something other than yourself is real. And then, the great Agatha Christie. It is a curious thought, But it is only when you see people looking ridiculous that you realize just how much you love them. Or as the greatest band of the 90s said, Counting Crows, every time she sneezes, I believe it's love. Stop it. And then Gail Dove in Sexy Beast, Ray Winstone's character. I know that you love me because I feel strong. That's a pretty good place to stop. Thank you for your attention. All right. Happy to begin the best part of the evening when we hear from you. Hey, Dave.